Welcome back to Yes Brainer. Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, revolutionized our understanding of the human mind. Among his most influential theories is the structural model of the psyche, which divides the mind into three distinct components: the ID, the ego, and the superego. These elements work in harmony and conflict, shaping our behaviors, thoughts, and emotions. Let's delve into each of these components, explore their roles and interactions, and consider their place in modern psychology. The ID, the primitive and instinctual. The ID is the most primal part of the psyche, present from birth. It operates on the pleasure principle, which is the drive to seek immediate gratification of all desires, wants, and needs. The ID is entirely unconscious and houses our basic instincts such as hunger, thirst, and sexuality. It is chaotic and amoral, driven solely by the urge to fulfill its impulses. Imagine a newborn baby. It cries when it is hungry, cold, or uncomfortable, seeking immediate satisfaction without regard for the external world or consequences. This raw, unfiltered demand for pleasure and avoidance of pain exemplifies the ID's role in our psyche. The ego, the rational mediator. The ego emerges as we grow and interact with the world. Operating on the reality principle, the ego is the rational part of the mind that navigates between the unrealistic desires of the ID and the external reality. It functions at both conscious and unconscious levels, using reason and logic to make decisions. The ego's primary role is to mediate between the ID's demands and the constraints of reality. It seeks to satisfy the ID's desires in realistic and socially acceptable ways, often delaying gratification to achieve long-term goals. For example, if the ID demands immediate pleasure by eating an entire cake, the ego might negotiate a compromise by allowing a small slice, considering health and social norms. The superego, the moral conscience. The superego develops around the age of 5, influenced by parental guidance and societal norms. It represents our moral conscience and ideals, striving for perfection rather than pleasure. The superego operates at both the conscious and unconscious levels, providing guidelines for making judgments. Comprised of two parts, the conscience and the ego ideal, the superego works to suppress the unacceptable urges of the ID and push the ego to pursue morally and socially acceptable goals. The conscience punishes the ego with feelings of guilt and shame when we fail to live up to our moral standards, while the ego ideal rewards us with feelings of pride and accomplishment when we meet those standards. For instance, if the ID urges us to lie to get out of trouble, the superego would counter this impulse by reminding us of the moral and ethical implications of dishonesty, potentially inducing guilt to deter the behavior. The dynamic interaction between the ID, ego, and superego shapes our personality and behavior. Freud described this relationship as a constant struggle, with the ego trying to balance the demands of the ID, the constraints of reality, and the moral pressures of the superego. Conflicts among these three components can lead to internal tension and psychological distress. For example, if the ID's demands are too strong, the ego may struggle to keep them in check, resulting in impulsive or destructive behavior. Conversely, if the superego is overly restrictive, it may lead to excessive guilt and anxiety. To manage these conflicts and maintain psychological equilibrium, the ego employs various defense mechanisms. These unconscious strategies help protect the individual from anxiety and internal conflict. Common defense mechanisms include repression, pushing distressing thoughts out of conscious awareness, denial, refusing to acknowledge reality, and projection, attributing one's own unacceptable desires to others. Freud's theories have been immensely influential in the development of psychology and psychotherapy. Concepts like the unconscious mind, defense mechanisms, and the importance of early childhood experiences have become integral to many therapeutic approaches. One of the major criticisms of Freud's theory is the lack of empirical evidence. His concepts were largely developed through clinical observations and case studies, which do not meet the rigorous standards of scientific research required today. Freud's theories are often considered too subjective, The interpretations of dreams, free associations, and other elements central to psychoanalysis can vary widely between practitioners. Freud's theories have also been critiqued for reflecting the cultural and gender biases of his time, particularly regarding his views on female psychology and sexuality. Despite these criticisms, many of Freud's ideas continue to be used in various forms within psychotherapy, particularly in psychodynamic and psychoanalytic therapies. Concepts like the unconscious mind and defense mechanisms are widely acknowledged, even if the specific structures of the ID, ego, and superego are not universally endorsed. Modern psychology has integrated and evolved many of Freud's ideas. For instance, contemporary psychodynamic theories have expanded on and modified his concepts to fit new research and cultural contexts. While neuroscience has not confirmed Freud's specific structures, it has provided insights into how unconscious processes influence behavior, supporting the general notion that not all mental processes are conscious. Other psychological theories and approaches, such as cognitive behavioral therapy, focus more on observable behaviors and cognitive processes, often eschewing the Freudian focus on unconscious drives. Freud's model of the ID, ego, and superego provides a framework for understanding the complex interplay of our instinctual drives, rational thought processes, and moral values. By recognizing how these components influence our behavior and emotions, we can gain deeper insight into the workings of our minds and the motivations behind our actions. As we navigate our daily lives, the balance and conflict among the ID, ego, and superego continue to shape our experiences, guiding us through the intricate landscape of human psychology. Whether we are conscious of it or not, Freud's theory remains a fundamental cornerstone in the study of the human psyche, offering timeless insights into the nature of human behavior. However, it's essential to view these theories as part of a broader historical and conceptual context, appreciating their influence while also recognizing the advancements and changes in modern psychological science.